Hey guys, and welcome to our review for 1917, directed by Sam Mendes, starring Dean Charles Chapman and George McKay, among several other cameos, I would say, several other roles. Colin Firth, Andrew Scott, Mark Strong, Benedict Cumberbatch, Richard Madden. My name is Scott Ellis. I'm joined here by Phil Clark.
Mark Strong donning the cap to keep his dome off of the
too reflective
screen.
for this film.
Couldn't distract the soldiers with his dome glare.
Also joining us, Adam Franey.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm ready. I've been waiting for this year a long time, and I don't mean 2020. I mean 1917.
Yeah, this is
Ladies and gents.
happened over 100 years ago. Isn't that crazy?
102,
103.
103. Almost
Crazy.
103.
Phil, can you give us a little synopsis?
I can.
For 1917.
Synopsis of 1917. In a race against time, two British soldiers must cross into enemy territory to deliver a message that could potentially save the lives of 1,600 men, including a brother of one of the two messengers.
Yes.
Really
exciting.
Really?
This film as well, shot by our boy,
Some guy.
Roger Deakins.
The goat.
And shot as sort of as if it was one take. So there's lots of hidden cuts in there, but it was intended as sort of like one continuous shot. Pretty crazy. It hasn't happened that many times. I guess we've had Birdman. There was some Russian film that was actually one take, but that doesn't really count in my opinion.
They filmed the movie as one take, not they like edited it like Birdman and this movie are. They tried to shoot it in one take.
Can you guys think of any other films that
Rope? Hitchcock's Rope.
Right.
Very, very good flick. Very old.
There's very few, so it was interesting to see this happen.
It's probably closer to 1917.
Especially in a war film. Adam, let's start with you. What are your thoughts? What's your take on 1917?
My take.
Yes.
Really? Well, I thought 1917 was a beautiful film. Not only visually, but spiritually. I loved it. It was beautiful. A beautiful story. Two friends. Well, are they friends? Two associates.
They become associates at the end of the film.
Form a brotherhood on this journey. It was something. It was quite the run. Speaking of running.
There's a lot of running.
I was shocked by the amount of downtime. I thought it was going to be this like all bets are off blitz to the finish line.
Mad Max,
Mad Max style, a blitz.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it was. Like there was quite a bit of
there's a good amount of downtime for sure.
Downtime, like exploring the landscape and stuff like that, and it was a little quieter than I thought. But when the shit hits the fan, it hits the fan.
Yeah.
The star of the movie is Roger Deakins. Like, we get some A-list stars in cameo roles who were all good.
Solid.
All very solid. I thought the two leads were really good. Haven't seen them in much, but they popped up here and there in things. But they're both great. The one take or seeming one take cinematography was like absolutely insane. I just kept looking over my shoulder like I can't believe it's still going. Like they didn't cut.
It sort of worked perfectly for this type of film.
Yeah.
Right? It really puts you, it had a purpose. It put you in that world, in that experience that those guys were having, and it's just sort of elevated the tension of it, right?
100%. Like seeing a finish line or a map out of where they're supposed to go, it was perfect. Like they went in and got briefed on what they have to do, and then they left the bunker and like the ditch and went out into the world, and whatever happened. No spoilers yet, but yeah, it was great. It was great. I don't know what else I can.
All right.
It's a very simplistic movie, I would say. Like it's not necessarily a complex. Like, oh my god, the narrative.
There's no like metaphors hidden in here.
No, it's very in your face. I feel like I don't have like a ton to really go deep about, but it's just a beautiful experience.
Phil, let's jump over to you. What are your thoughts about 1917?
I agree with Adam. I really like this film a lot. looks amazing.
Mm.
I think even more so than Roger, you give some props to like the set teams that like
Oh,
work on this
that
stuff.
built the trenches and
Built the trenches, built the fields, built the
Yeah.
ditches, built like the
the fields were there.
Well, I mean, they built the actual like
they built the Earth.
they built the
They
planet.
built the planet.
It's God. God's on the
God.
set. On the set
Deacons
team.
is God. The
Deacons
production
is God.
designer is
No,
God.
I just like the way that like that we moved through the movie. Like you said, like you put it. You feel like you're really there in the action. You also feel like there really is all this like there's no man's land. Like every time they step out or like look over a bunker, it's like you do get that tension. There's like a scene where someone's pinned down and you're like, oh Jesus, is this gonna be the end? Like he's stuck here. Like there's a lot of like little moments that just dialed up how dangerous and perilous this mission was, and there were some also great moments that they had in this movie. I do think it was kind of like an ebb and flow with like the tension, but I think you kind of needed that to feel
Yeah.
the tension. Like I don't think this was a movie that like you could keep just like cranking the tension. I think you did kind of have to unwind a bit because it was like it didn't want it to feel unrealistic, and I think nothing in this movie really felt out of place and or like too bizarre that I was like, oh, they're doing a movie. This isn't like what could have like. All of this thing seems like very plausible to like what could have happened if this were to happen. Now I don't even know if this was like a real mission or this was not a real mission or anything like that.
Well, as you might have seen in the end credits, it's based on a story that his grandfather, Sam Mendes, his grandfather, told.
What? Really?
Or knew or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know the full story there, but it was based on a real experience.
which is crazy.
So
Like just
It felt real, like
Yeah.
you said. It didn't feel like they were really stretching too much. I mean, there's maybe a moment or two where you reminded me of The Revenant in more ways than one. This movie, some of the longer
with the longer takes and stuff. Yeah.
longer takes, and that kind of turns into a survival story, survival film where he's more getting into the wilderness and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a scene where he's like in a river.
Yeah,
That kind of reminded me of The Revenant.
that reminded me a lot of The Revenant, for better or worse.
yeah.
I think in a good way.
Yeah.
But
I kind of got reminded of Paths of Glory, like the end of
Yes.
at the end of that
Right.
movie when he's walking just after the river. Actually,
Yes.
right.
very different. I like that scene in the original movie just like breaks me, but this didn't break me. It just kind of gave me like, oh my god, like chills. I like this movie a lot. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
But
No buts. It's just a
No buts.
solid.
No buts.
Let's jump in.
Good solid
I
movie.
love this film. I will say
Love.
love. You guys didn't want to break that
He's-
word out, but
he's
I
a
said it, but it's
Yeah.
I'm
didn't
not
feel
it's not-
honest.
perfect. I don't. It's not a 5. Spoiler alert. I'm not 5ing.
I wouldn't put it up there either, but
wanted to.
I do I thoroughly enjoy this film. I just think it's the perfect little ride. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I thought everyone was great. I think it's kind of it'll be great for I think George McKay and Dean Charles Chapman for their careers. You know, to kind of break them out. I know, like Dean Charles Chapman was like King Tommen in Game of Thrones. You guys might recognize him from there, or he was also in. What was it?
Didn't know that.
Bruce Springsteen movie.
Yes.
Blinded by the Light.
Yeah, he was in Blinded by the Light as well. So his star's kind of rising as well with George McKay. I mean, we saw him in a film at TIFF, which was The True History of the Kelly Gang.
That was it.
But he was also in Mr. Fantastic. So it's nice to sort of see them have these starring roles and kind of show their chops a little bit. And best of luck to them. I think they were great.
King Tommen. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's
That
crazy.
fucked me up.
Out the window.
Yeah. Spoiler. But yeah, the cinematography was amazing, and I really liked the sort of
Side.
how they sort of designed it geographically. Like it was really distinct areas. Like you could really understand where they were going, and it had these different zones. Like the first like trench, and then there's like kind of a bombed out area with like all these like munitions.
And they did a
And
good
then-
job like differentiating between the trenches. Like,
Yeah.
Because they do cross into German trenches at one spoiler.
Yeah,
But-
very very different feel. And then there's like a farmhouse area, and then there's like the river kind of area with like a building, and there's like a bridge, and then there's a nighttime scene in a town with a
Oh,
burning church. And
gorgeous.
the cinematography in that part was
Oh.
amazing.
Mind blowing.
I mean, there's like these flares going off that change the shadows and everything, and the whole time I'm just like, This is amazing.
How about that like shot from like when they're in the top of that like tower and then they like drop down. He's like in that like field and the flare just going over.
Oh my god.
Stunning.
Breathtaking.
Stunning.
I was like, stop, Deacons.
Yeah, there's just something about, seeing that amazing cinematography. It just elevates it so much more than if
So
it was
much
just
more.
kind of a run-of-the-mill, cinematography going on.
Yeah, imagine this movie just not in the long take style or not with like the sort of like still framed like compositing of each shot and like it was just totally generic. I feel like it would just be a generic war movie.
Yeah, it wouldn't have
You
had
know?
that same. It wouldn't have hit the same, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing with Roger Deakins, just because it's shot as if it was one take, it doesn't mean it was all like shaky cam, like just following them around. Like the camera morphs in really interesting ways and it creates different shots. So like, yeah, instead of just kind of like Blair Witch style, like shaky cam,
The best
it's
style.
like the camera frame morphs into really what's the word?
Cinematic.
Cinematic shots. Like the framing of it was so perfectly choreographed
Yeah.
that you can't help but be impressed.
So many great like Deacon shots too. That
Yeah,
if you know
he
him,
will
you're like,
get
fuck.
nominated for best cinematography. Roger Deakins. There's no way, and he might win. I can't say he will win because you never
Back to
know.
back.
But he might win, honestly. But he's gonna at least be nominated. That's a lock, right? But yeah, I mean, credit to Sam Mendes as well. I mean, obviously, it takes the director as well to sort of edit the flow of how the shots are happening, and like you guys were saying with that downtime, I think was especially important to flesh out the characters a little bit, but also as a contrast to all the tension and all the action sequences, it helps kind of elevate those scenes as well to have that contrast, like a downtime with, there's he sort of meets up with a character, or one of the characters meets up with another character in a town. I don't want to say too much, but like in a basement, like that scene as well as sort of the sort of orchard scene right before a certain shot, which is in the trailer of a plane crashing. Like that contrast, I think, is important. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this film. I think we should give our ratings. We can maybe get into some spoiler talk.
All right.
I'm gonna start off. I'm going heavy 4.
Oh shit.
I think I'm gonna go 4.
Oh shit. Pressure.
What are you gonna give it?
I think I gotta go heavy 4.
My
I was
bad.
leaning toward 4, but you know what? That rat scene though.
Fuck.
The rat puts it over the edge for me.
Yeah, that theater was like shocked by that.
Oh
sure.
yeah, I was too.
We were in a packed theater. Well, fair warning, if you haven't seen 1917, check it out. It's in theaters right now. Go support it.
Limited release, so you gotta
Please.
go find it, but it's worth it.
Yeah, we had to travel into the city to see it where we live, but I think it's going wide in early January.
Yeah, I think Tim said he was going.
January 10th.
Right.
Check it out.
So
Expands
check it out when
wide.
it expands, where you are. But fair warning, if you haven't seen it, we're going to discuss some spoilers, so you've been warned.
Oh shit.
I guess the biggest thing for me, the most surprising thing was one of the main characters dies about halfway through, right?
Yeah.
Pretty shocking for me, and I think it had a good, it was very effective.
Oh.
Right? What did you guys think about that?
I thought it was like brutal, but it was not necessary, but it was definitely like a very well timed. I think I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought
The
it was
timing was
a-
absurd because he's like telling him go get him some water,
yeah,
and then the camera's on George McKay getting the water.
great cinematic moment.
Great moment, and then it just flips back, and you just see him get absolutely shit.
No,
Thanks.
and he's just and the German pilot's got the knife out. It's just
Oh, I was like, no, and then they're talking back and forth. I'm like, oh, he's fine. Like he's gonna carry him. Like we're gonna keep going, but no.
No.
The brutality of war. We just cut half. The 2-man cast is now 1-man cast, right?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. I didn't expect
Yeah.
that.
Because I don't remember, like, in the trailers or anything, was it only one of them? Or was it both of them?
They did take shots from like the trench,
Mm-hmm.
like at the beginning, the first like 10 minutes, and then they definitely like throw in some shots of like later in the movie.
Of George McKay like running
yeah, but
along
you
the
don't
trench.
know.
But you don't really like.
There's no context.
There's no
right?
context
Yeah.
between the two, so it's hard to be like, oh yeah, there's only one now. But
But I guess the signs were there. We might have been able
Yeah.
to tell, but
Yeah.
if we
I
really,
thought the signs were kind of there because he was like the guy who gets stabbed was very like he's getting blazed like for the first half, like not like hard, but he's getting like low. He's like, why did you pick me? Like, what did you think we were doing? Like, he's like, why are you like you don't know enough to know what you're doing? Like,
Yeah.
listen to me. I've been to the Somme, been through it. So it was
I
like,
guess there's also the classic trope of like Dean Charles Chapman's character like talking about his family and like back home and like the orchard and everything.
Oh,
And you're like,
shit.
That's never a good sign in
You ain't gonna see
retrospect.
them.
Yeah, it's like they need that character development to make the death hurt even more, right?
And it hurt. It hurt.
Yeah.
man.
I thought it was great in that moment as well. Like after he gets stabbed, like his face got whiter and whiter. Did you
Yeah,
I
notice
love
that?
that.
And I was like, man, how did they do that?
I know.
Like had such an effect because you can see the blood draining out of his face, and obviously there's a blood bag somewhere. He's like pouring blood
Yeah.
all over himself, and you're just like, okay, guys, this isn't good. This is not good. Even when he has like the rolled up sort of like gauze on his wound, then he like lifts it up, George
And it's
McKay,
just red.
completely like drenched and like throws it away. He's like, this is not good. This
Yeah.
is not good, guys.
Ooh.
But yeah, it just kind of shows the brutality of war, and a lot of times in this movie as well. I mean, you just see them walk by all these corpses of soldiers, and it has a sort of adds to the vibe. Like anything could happen, anyone could die at any moment.
Mhm.
Like the fragility of life, in sort of in war, obviously. Yeah, I also thought the very ending was great as well with George McKay meeting the brother, and just that moment where he walks through the trees as well. So it's jumping around a bit, but when he walks and comes into the company for the first time and there's someone singing, I thought that scene was great.
That was a great scene.
Where the camera kind of circles
Kind of
around.
like he like sits down and the camera kind of keeps moving around the circle and comes like back to him, and he's just like you can tell how just exhausted he is from his and like it has been like a ride at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Did we mention Richard Madden in the cast?
I was just about to mention
Yeah.
Richard Madden and that meeting with the brother. I thought that was
Mackenzie?
great.
Is he
Yeah.
Corporal Mackenzie? Or is that the captain? Cumberbatch.
That was
I think
Cumberbatch,
General Mackenzie.
General
Yeah.
Mackenzie?
Lieutenant Mackenzie, because the general was giving him.
It was
the order.
Blake, wasn't it?
Blake was
Richard Madden.
Was Richard Madden.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, but I thought that scene was great. I thought the acting. I don't know, Richard Madden. I love Richard Madden.
Yeah,
Me
he's
too.
great.
He's fantastic.
Bodyguard's sick. You check that out.
Yeah, I heard it was great.
But I thought I felt like, okay, whoever is gonna be the brother is gonna be someone big. And I didn't want to look at the cast. Like a lot of the time, like I knew there was. I remember Colin Firth from the trailer. I feel like,
Yeah.
but the rest of the like A-list cast, I purposely didn't look at the cast because I kind of wanted to be surprised.
Nice.
And I was. You see,
Nice.
Andrew Scott was great. Like
Hilarious.
yeah, there was some levity with him early on. I thought he was hilarious. And Mark Strong was, pretty solid.
Yeah. Just
Benedict Cumberbatch, I thought, just him turning around and seeing Benedict Cumberbatch as general, I thought that was, it's effective. I don't know.
Yeah, it's good that they had like small roles, so, like these two guys who are like up and comers, so to speak, like had their
They were the
moments.
stars.
They were the heavy lifters here, which was
Mhm.
great. But Andrew Scott was hilarious. I do love that guy.
Oh.
But it's like
So
everyone knows Richard Madden now, so it's like
Yeah.
it was so effective to have Richard Madden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy, it's like Matt Damon, right?
Yes.
It's like Saving Private Ryan. It's like when you have that well-known person, it's like you have the same reaction that George McKay has, where like he knows.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's you.
He knows,
Yeah.
right? Like the audience has the same reaction, like, oh,
That's-
I get it.
yeah.
That's it. Got to be him because it's Richard Madden.
It's weird too because
very
like
effective.
not only is it Richard Madden, but they do also look like they
Alike.
could be related.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
like Richard Madden, he's like, oh, he looks like me, but he's older, and I'm like I was like, who the fuck are they gonna get to? And then it's like, oh shit, of course it's this. Like it wasn't really.
The stud.
But just the emotion in that scene was great, and seeing Richard Madden sort of
That.
his face evolve from being like excited and happy to like obviously
Then
emotional.
And then when he's like, oh, can I write to your mother? And he's just like, Yeah, you should. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, it's just like brutal. Like he's not like, and then they get that handshake, like that firm.
It's great.
That firm 100-year-old man handshake.
Yeah. And the ending was very great. Obviously, with George McKay sitting down in the tree, I thought it was very cyclical in the sense of, he starts at the, leaning against a tree, and it ends the same way. And I just thought it was a perfect sort of ending there. And I don't have much.
We didn't even talk about that scene before he gets to before he delivers the message and before he meets Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, the big run?
When he's got 300 yards of trench to get through.
Crazy.
Goosebumps.
Just the amount of extras and everything, and how they built the trench for real is just crazy. Yeah, it just crazy. And I mean, you see it in the trailer, but just George McKay just running. I don't know, and him just getting hit by people that were running out of the trench too.
Makes complete sense. Like I love that they kept that in there. Like I know people in our theater were chuckling, but I was like, you can't have two people sprinting in different directions and with that many bodies and
get
not
blasted.
Yeah, it just.
But I thought just the tension was so high in that scene because it's for every guy that's running over the top of the trench, that's a wasted life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's we need to stop this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for that scene, it's he's really against the clock in that moment, right? Yeah. He's I need to get to the general and stop this.
And his decision to hop over and climb that, where he's looking down the trench and there's just bodies everywhere, and he's just okay, I gotta go over the top. It was an awesome moment.
It's crazy. Yeah, was there anything else you guys wanted to?
I think that wraps it up for me. It wraps it up for y'all.
Yeah.
Definitely check it out. I think that'll do it for our review of 1917. Where can people find you, Phil?
People can find me on Letterboxd at Wicked Swami.
You can find me on Twitter at Franny25 and Instagram and Letterboxd at UprealAdam.
Find myself, Scott, on Letterboxd at UprealScott. As well, if you enjoy this video, leave a like on it, leave a comment below in the comment section, and of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already.
Please do.
And as always, keep it real.